All right, guys. For those of you that are here, welcome back. Looks like no one's here yet, but for editing purposes, or for those of you who might be coming back, rewatching this later on, just as a quick recap, I started off the day by kind of showing you guys how the quarter method is going to work, just how this kind of all nests together. Next thing I did was that I took this 3/8 inch dowel and cut down 10 or I think it was 14 was the total I ended up with, 1/4 inch lengths that I did on the miter saw. After that, I got out my 1/2 inch birch plywood here and cut a 1.5 inch strip off of that, which I currently have sitting right here on the miter saw. So this thing I'm going to be doing is, you can see I've got another piece of plywood laid out here on the ground. This is just a 1/4 inch piece of birch. This is what will become the floor of the box, basically. So what I'm going to do now is cut off a 3.5 inch strip here off the end. That 3.5 inches will, of course, be the width of the interior, with an extra 1/4 inch on each side to fit into those dados that I'll be cutting. So I'm going to cut a 3.5 inch strip off the end here, which again means that I'll need to change the depth on my saw, get that set to just a crowd of a 1/4 inch. I'll probably do like 3/8, something along those lines. And then I'll set it up with the Kreg again to be that 3.5 inch length, so I can rip that out. Well, this is a cross cut, not a rip, but y'all get the idea. So to set the depth, since I can't just use the 3/4 inch depth of the table itself, what I've done is I've taken my square here, and I know you can't see because this is an old computer and the camera angle is bad, but I've set this to be 3/8 of an inch deep. So now what I can do is just mark that depth here on the edge of my workbench. And now when I go to set the depth of my saw, again, unplug so I don't cut myself apart. Oh, I've got a viewer. Welcome, whoever is here. I'm going to guess it's either my mom or my wife, one of the two. Of course, Leah is sitting in the living room relaxing after a good hard ride this morning, so I'm loud enough she can probably hear me without needing to watch the live stream. All right. That's a little bit too deep, actually. There we go. All right. So that is the depth that I want. I'm now going to set this to 3.5 inches right there. And we'll go ahead and cut this down. All right, and trying to learn from my mistakes earlier today, I'm going to go ahead and take the pictures in real time so I can post those later. All right, loud noises. Need power before you can make loud noises. There you have it. That will be the interior width of the Zen garden. And unless I really screw up something and have to start over, that should be the last I need of the circular saw. So, go ahead, take this apart. 2 people watching now. Look at that. Doubling my audience. I'm just a real go-getter. Who's spying on me at the moment? Sorry, my eyesight's terrible. I had to lean in to make sure it actually said 2. All right. I'm not going to put that completely away yet in case I do need it later on. But I'm going to try to clean up this mess just a little bit. All right. All right, and it's such a beautiful day in the neighborhood. Is that too bright? Does that mess up the light? We'll go with it, see how that does. Just try to get a little bit more ventilation in here if I can. Alrighty, alrighty, alrighty. So, my next step, now that I have all the various kind of the various widths cut properly here, is the next thing I'm going to do is head over to my router table. I'm going to cut one dado all the way down the length of this board here. Again, going with that quarter method, it's going to be a 1/4 inch deep, 1/4 inch wide, and 1/4 of an inch away from here. Now, before I do that, I need to look and decide what I want to be the top and bottom of my board. Which really won't matter that much. I think I more want to determine what's going to be inside versus outside. And just roughly speaking, I don't know how well you can see this with the light here, but this side just seems to have a little bit more kind of gray notes to it, which you saw when I was holding up the board. It has some really cool grain texture in it, but in something this small, that just ends up kind of looking discolored to me. It's not big enough to really show that off. So I think I'm going to make this the exterior, just because it's more uniform, which I think is going to make it look better. So I'll make this the outside, which means that I'll actually cut the dado on this face, since this will be the interior. And I don't think it much matters which end I make the top or bottom. I've actually got, that's away in the shelves. I'll show it to you in a bit. But I've got some edge banding I'm going to put on that will cover up the layers there of the plywood that you can see. So the edge banding will make it look like this birch front. It's a birch edge banding. So I really don't care much for which one is my top and which one's my bottom. I guess it's just kind of up to me. Cut off that end. I was showing you guys this before lunch. So you can see how there's a void there and there. I'm going to probably just chop off this end of the board and just scrap that, because I don't like how it looks. And actually, you can see on this face, it actually damages the front side there as well. I'm not as big a fan of that. So I'll run it along this length. We'll cut the dado along that edge there. So push blocks to keep my hands free and not near the spinning death blade. Here is the edge banding I was mentioning. So it's just a strip of wood with a glue adhesive on the back. You lay it out on the face of the plywood there, iron it on, then compress it and let it finish, and it will dry in place and will look like a complete piece of wood as opposed to the plywood that you're actually using. So I'll be putting this on at the end. But since I was in the drawer, I figured I'd pull it out and show it to you. But more importantly, the real reason I went over there was to grab my push blocks. I'm also going to go ahead. To be honest, I should have been doing this before and completely forgot about it until just now when I went in the drawer. But I'm going to go ahead and put on some eye protection. My glasses are probably good enough, but it doesn't hurt to be extra cautious. And you can see I've had my my Bluetooth in. I listen to music a lot or podcasts, but on this particular day, the reason I'm using it is as hearing protection. So if I suddenly start yelling and screaming at you, it's because I can't hear myself very well anymore. But, all right. Got all that on and in. I spent a lot of time thinking about this and drawing it up and planning it and getting all the pieces together. It feels really good to have this done. I did all that work on the router table specifically for this project. It's kind of a big deal. This moment's kind of a big deal to me. To finally do the project that I had built the table for. This is exciting. I noticed that in my test cuts and stuff, I left some sawdust on the table, so I'm going to clean that up real quick before I actually get to running the piece through. Because last thing I want is to get overexcited and run something through before it's ready, and the sawdust gets in the way and throws off the cut or messes something up. So something that I don't think y'all can quite see. I think it's kind of hidden by the outpost of that of the sawhorse there. The router that I got is an older, not that great quality, a little bit on the cheap side to be honest. And it doesn't have an on-off switch. It has a press to hold. The idea being it's supposed to be a safety mechanism that you can press and hold it as you're working on your piece. And then if you were to like drop it or lose it or something surprises you, you let go, your thumb comes off that button and it turns itself off, and it's a safety feature. However, if I were to use that same safety feature on my table setup, I would have to be leaned down and pressing the button like this while the blade is spinning, or the bit rather is spinning, and I'm pushing my board across that. It's obviously not a safety feature that I'm that thrilled with. So what I currently have is actually I've just got a bar clamp on there right now, holding that button depressed. And down here I have an aftermarket switch, again by Craig. That's just a simple paddle switch. So I'm able to plug my router into the back of that switch, and the router turns on and off when I turn the paddle on and off. The really cool thing about this is that there are actually two outlets in the back of that Craig switch. So I currently have the router and the shop vac plugged in, so that as soon as I cut on the router, the shop vac also cuts on, which means that a lot of that dust and debris that the router kicks up and creates, as it's just ripping out all that wood, gets immediately absorbed by the shop vac. So just a nice little feature that I was able to put on there. It's something I actually did this week after having built the router and looking at some of the things I wasn't happy with. Just a little upgrade that I made. I got the switch at the same time that I got the push blocks, just to try to keep everything safe and protected. So, oh, look at that. I went up to three times as popular as I was when I started this episode. This is fantastic. Okay, so table's clean. I'm going to double and triple check that I'm running this through the way that I want to, which it certainly appears that I am. So yeah, I'm going to go ahead and route out my first dado. Wish me luck. Loud noises. And just like that, I've got my dado. So obviously there's still a little bit of sawdust in there. You know what? I've got a tool for this. You know what? I just knocked off a perfect example. Well, it's kind of hard to see here. Let's see if I can give yourself. There you go. All right. So if you see that little flip of wood right there, I'm kind of pulling up on right there. That's an example of tear out. So as the blade of the router came out, it kind of reached this exposed end, and the speed and force that it was working with left just a little bit of a chunk missing there. I don't know if you can see the chunk. Nah, camera's not nearly good enough. But anyway, that is why I was doing things like putting the zero clearance fence here on my router, or on my miter saw rather, and using the foam board when I was cutting the plywood, just to avoid that. Now the good news is, for this this box that I'm making, like I mentioned, it's going to be 11 by 3.5, which is a total of, double check my math, but 29 inches. This is a 4-foot piece, so I can afford to take this to the miter saw and chop off the bad ends, and still have plenty of room left over in the middle to cut the lengths that I need for the box, but then also possibly cut additional pieces if something goes wrong. So I'm pretty happy with this. Like I said, I'm going to chop off this end here where there's a little bit of a void, and I'm noticing some kind of dents down here on this end that I'll probably end up chopping off as well. So I'll probably end up cutting off these two ends and work with the space that's kind of between my hands. That's roughly what I'm planning for now. But before I get to that, first test is to make sure that my 1/4 inch plywood fits properly in my 1/4 inch dado. Well, that is pretty snug. Either my plywood is a little bit more than a 1/4 inch, or my dado blade is a little bit less than a 1/4 inch. That's not supposed to be how it works. All right. So I got two options. I can either shuffle my fence just a hair and cut this to be just the tiniest bit wider, or I can try to sand this to be just the tiniest bit smaller. I think I'm going to try adjusting the fence first. I think that's going to be my first move. All right, give me a second. And I've realized that I can actually afford to do some test cuts on this, not too many, unfortunately. But since I'm planning to take off the ends of these a little bit, I can afford to kind of shuffle and cut just a bit. See if I can make this work out. Okay, let me try something. In case you can't tell, I need to fix the, you can't really see from this. Oh, you can. My shop vac doesn't fit perfectly in the little gap that I've cut out here, so I need to create a better mounting system. Probably just need to put a couple of pieces of wood in there to give it something nice and easy to seat into. Anyway, that's not important, though. All right. Eyes and ears. Push blocks. Loud noises. Here goes nothing. So all I did there was just I routed out just a little bit there, and stopped just before I hit that void, because I know I'm going to cut off after the void anyhow. So I routed, I dadoed, whatever the right term is here. I cut to that line so that I'm using what I know to be a test piece, basically. So let's see how this slightly longer or slightly wider dado works. All right, there we go. I mean, that's snug. It's not a lot of play. But, I mean, it fits. And that's real tight. I'd rather be too tight than too loose, but I mean, there you go. That's in. So, fun story. I screwed up previously, but it turns out that worked. Last week when I set up my oh, and you know what? Now it makes sense why. Now it makes sense. Okay, so story time. Just steal a word from Bert Kreischer. Secret time. Last week when I was setting up my fence, the way that I got it ready was that sorry, hang on. I needed a haircut before the shelter in place started. So now it's been another month and I'm just turning into Shaggy over here. Anyway, so what I did was I got everything set up on the table, and then to determine where I needed my fence to be, I got out my piece of plywood here and I set it down between the bit and the table so I could make sure that, this being a 1/4 inch, I now realize it's not a 1/4 inch, but when I thought that this was a 1/4 inch, I laid this out to be my 1/4 inch measuring stick and set the fence to where it needed to be. And you probably noticed when I went to adjust this, I've got these 3-inch bolts. It's a 1/4 inch diameter on that. So what I did was, when I had the fence in place, I clamped it down, then I got my drill out, and I drilled a 1/4 inch hole through the fence and through the table down into the bottom support, so that all I have to do is just drop this bolt straight through those holes, and I know that my fence is precisely where I want it to be. which makes this really repeatable. Long term, I don't want my router table staying here. As you can tell, it's not a huge shop. It's about 12 feet by 15, give or take. And obviously my heavy bag here in the corner, I want to be able to work out and use it. And it's a little bit inconvenient to have my router table there because I don't want to kick my routing table when I'm trying to kick my heavy bag. So I want to be able to collapse this and put it away. That's why I didn't build legs and everything for it. It's just on the Sawhorses. My goal, I'll turn the camera later on, but right above where the router table currently is about a 4-foot empty space of wall between these two windows. There's a second window right here that you can't see. But so my hope is to put up a French cleat system and hang this router table up on the wall when it's not used. I can then flatten down the Sawhorses, either hang them on the wall or tuck them around out of the way, something like that, and open up this floor space. So I wanted to make it easy when I pull it off the wall to immediately recreate this setup that I need for doing these quarter methods. Because it seems like a really easy way to build boxes and drawers and cabinets, theoretically, that sort of thing. So I wanted to have an easy way to recreate it and make it repeatable. So I drilled those holes through, set it all up, and this morning before I went live, I had a little bit of a panic moment because when I went to create my example here for you guys and show you guys how this overlapping system of dados and rabbits is supposed to work, the reason that you can see a second strip here is because I set this board up on my fence and went to test it out, and it doesn't fit. The distance from the fence is more than a 1/4 inch. You can see that overlap there, which, having just tried to fit my plywood, I now realize my plywood wasn't an 1/8 of an inch, isn't a 1/4 inch, so I actually set the depth too far away. So I had this giant freak out moment because all of a sudden I've got a fence that isn't set up right, and I already drilled bolts because I was so certain that I could set it up right, and everything was going to be off, and I'm supposed to make this whole project today, and oh my gosh, I've ruined everything. So, cut to the 30 minutes between when I created the link at 10 o'clock and 10:30 when I had told everyone I was going to be going live. I'm freaking out trying to figure out how to make this setup work properly. And what I ended up finally being able to do, was I took the bolt out on this right-hand side so that it was just pivoting on the left-hand side and just got a clamp to hold it in place and just kind of shuffled it and clamped it, shuffled it and clamped it, shuffled it and clamped it until I was able to actually get the quarter setup that I need. I then just drilled a second bolt hole in the backside and dropped a bolt in. So I know that the one bolt on the left and the back bolt on the right gives me a quarter setup. But realizing that I had set up my original wrong measurement based on this piece of plywood, what I just did was I just reused the original front hole that I was so frustrated with myself having screwed up. And now when I re-dadoed this length, it will be at the actual correct length for my piece of plywood. So it was a screw up that turns out to be working in my favor, basically. So it's, again, a snug fit. It's pretty tight, but I think it'll actually work out just right. I'll be able to make this happen. So what I need to do, now that I've got my kind of proof of concept, is come back here to this fella and finish expanding this out. I don't even know if you can see. I mean, it's really, really subtle. But just above my fingertip, there's a little shoulder right there. Yeah, let me try this. There's that little bit of a shoulder right there, where you can see it's just barely wider on this side. And that's all the difference between the true quarter and the, I don't know, quarter 3/8 or something like that I guess I'm going to have to call my method. But all that to say, I just need to run this through the router again. make the width just that littlest bit wider, and then I'll have to set my fence back to the correct quarter-inch lip so I can take care of that. So the dado for the floor of the box is going to have to be just that littlest bit wider. But for the dados and the rabbets that will join the walls together to make the actual frame for the box, those I will set back to the quarter I was talking about. So be a little bit of kind of dancing back and forth with this to get it to work out right, but I think it'll turn out just right. I think it'll do well. It's got a problem solve a little bit. So eyes and ears again. Push blocks and loud noises. Great. So all just slightly longer, slightly wider rather. This board isn't even perfectly straight, but just like that. There it is. So there's the floor. Now all I need to do is just chop these into the right lengths and wrap them around the edges of the board, basically. The other thing I need to do is reset this fence before I completely forget and screw everything up. So give me a second. Oh, and I need to take pictures and recreate all that work I just did. Good news is, people who see the pictures won't have any clue how much I screwed up and how all the fixing I had to do. And I'll be honest, for the purpose of pictures, I'm actually going to go ahead and unplug everything so I don't accidentally cut this thing on and either ruin the work I just did or ruin the fingers that do the work. Just to show off how safe I am, we'll take a picture of the push block. Although, not super safe to be taking pictures while cutting, so this really looks like I don't know what safety actually is. But whatever, it's an action shot. Y'all know what stage, you've got my back. You know, probably the fact that this board isn't perfectly straight is probably part of the reason why it's not fitting as easily. It's kind of having to work against what it wants to do to actually get it to fit like that. But it's neither here nor there. All right, pictures taken. Sorry, listen to Dragon Force on Pandora earlier. All right, so I think that my next step is going to be cutting these boards to length. Because what I'll need to do, let me back and referencing this guy again. Oh, and y'all can't see anything because I didn't color it in well. Hang on. All right, is that easier to see? Yes, it is. There we go. Okay, so what I have just done is cut this long dado here. That's also the same dado there, right? Because if you rotate this 90 degrees and drop it down, that one lines up with this one. So that is the floor dado that I just cut. Actually, I'm realizing that I should have. Anyway, never mind. So the next thing I'm going to need to do on the router table is to cut these dados here and these rabbets here. Dados and rabbets are functionally the same thing. It's just a question of, is it in the middle of the wood, or is it on, like, going through the wood, or is it along the edge of the wood? So the finished product will be the same, that there will be a 1/4 of an inch cut out of the wood. The question is it a 1/4 inch kind of trough, or is it a 1/4 inch lip? So the lips will be the rabbets, the dados are the trenches. So to be able to cut these and rabbet those, I need to have these two pieces at the correct length. So what I'm going to do is move over to the miter saw now and go ahead and cut everything to length. The floor here, you can see, is already at the correct width. It's a little tough to tell exactly, but you can see that it's the width of the interior plus a 1/4 inch on either side to fit down into all those dados. So this I need to cut to be 10 inches long, or 9.5 inches long rather, because it needs to fit kind of on the similar idea, the interior space of the box plus the 1/4 inch on each side. And that will be correct. So I'll do a 10.5 inch cut on this. And then on my frame, I'll first chop off the ugly bits from the ends. And then I will cut two 11 inch lengths, and then two 3.5 inch lengths. So those are the basic dimensions of what I need to cut out for this. So I'll do the 11 first, then I'll do, shoot, is it 11 or is it 10? Isn't it? Because it's 9 on the inside, the 1/2 inch on the other side, so it's 10, not 11. Learn things. So I'll do the 10 inch cuts first for these. Then I'll shuffle it down and do the 9.5 inch cut for the floor, and then I'll bring it down even further and do the 3.5 inch cut for the ends. And that's the plan. All right. Hello, 3 people watching. If you don't mind, there is a chat function. I think if you're watching on TV or on TV on your computer, it'll be down kind of underneath the description box, which is currently empty because I'm too lazy to write a description. But scroll down there and just let me know who's watching, just so I can say hi to you. I like to know who I'm talking to. So, hello everyone. Let me know who you are. Y'all don't know. I'll tell you a story later on. But this whole setup right now made me really, really happy. I'll explain in a bit. One other thing, the other reason why I cut these zero clearance fences is because it lets me just extend out the fence line a little bit more to make it a little bit easier to adjust for the length. It's kind of tough to attach a stop block to these short fences. I mean, they don't extend very far, right? There's, the distance roughly from the blade to the edge of the fence that came with the miter saw is only about that much. I mean, what, a foot, maybe 18 inches, not even. So by just using the zero clearance fence, it just gave me an excuse to also add something with a little bit longer wing to it, which makes it a lot easier for me to be able to come in. And attach something to act as a stop block here. Ten and a half inches, by the way, is the length there. You know what I need? Don't need. You know, it'd be cool to have. They make adhesive rulers that you can kind of attach to fences like this, so that instead of me needing to pull out my tape measure and try to balance it here on the face of, or on the top of my fence as I'm going to lock in the measurement there, It just turns your fence into a measuring stick for you. Makes it a little bit easier to kind of drop in the pieces you want. But regardless of all that, that is my 10-inch piece. Now the big question is, what is the safest way for me to cut this without tearing the snot out of that dado piece? I'm not wondering if putting the dado first might have been a mistake. Guess we'll find out. I think what I'm going to do I'll try it this way first. I'm going to set it so that the lip of this dado, so if you imagine that you are my miter saw, that I'm chopping this way, and that the fourth wall here that you guys are watching through is the fence, I'm going to take this piece and put it against the fence like this. I think that'll give it a lot of good support here. And the last place that the blade cuts is this bottom corner. So I think it's better for it to have already gone through the dado edge there. Oh, hey Granny and Granddaddy, how are y'all doing? So, that's what I'm going to do here. I'm going to try to cut it this way. By the way, Granddaddy, since you are not just a resident expert, but I'm pretty sure like the mechanics spell expert on all this stuff, if you see me doing something stupid, let me know in all caps so I can not ruin my project. All right. Moment of truth time. Loud noises. Well, good news, bad news. It cut right. It did exactly what I wanted to, but I forgot to avoid that void. I am frustrated with myself about that. Yeah. All right, well, I guess that's just how I was cutting out that void. So let me go ahead and do this again. My 10-inch pieces. I'll use this as a piece of scrap so I can test out stuff. Yeah, that's what it was. It's totally on purpose to create options. All right, loud noises. All right, next thing for me to do is move this block down to 9.5 inches for the purposes of the floor. least. Let's move this down to 3.5 inches. Here's the problem. That is probably, yeah, that's not going to work. So I need to use a longer stop block then. Point it. All right. And just like that, I have the basics of my box made. So, these are obviously the two end pieces for the box, right? And then these two pieces here attach and look something like that. Now, what's going to be different is that I'm going to cut this 1/4 inch rabbet into each of these two, and that way they will seat into these exterior frames, and that will let these long pieces fit in there. So that's the next thing I need to do, is to cut the rabbets. And so I've cut the dados to join the frame to the floor, but I now need to cut the rabbets and dados to join the frame to itself. And while I was having lunch, I realized that I had inadvertently created a problem for myself, which is, it's going to be tough for you to see over here, but the way that the fence is built, the table and everything is built, there's about 1.5 inch hole cut in the center of the table to allow the bit to come out and cut cleanly. Now, as you hear me talk about with the zero clearance fence over here, that means that stuff can fall through. The problem with having 1.5 inch hole in the ground over here is that this is 1.5 inches, and so there's going to be a lot of cutting time here where this board is not going to be supported flush. It's going to be able to tip, and obviously if it can tip, then that means that cutting blade can cut deeper than I want it to. So I realized that while I was eating lunch, but I think that that's not too much of a difficulty for me to overcome. I think the easiest way for me to do this will just be to clamp the boards together like that. And that way, as I'm cutting across the face, I now have a 3-inch surface to be bracing against, which means that it will always have support on all sides. So that is what I'm going to attempt to do now. I think this will work, but obviously This could all go very, very wrong. I hope it doesn't. Other thing I need to do, of course, is to reset my fence here to get it back to the true 1/4 inch width that we need it to be for this portion of the project. Alright, so that should be all for you today. Unless I've messed something up and need to fix it. Should be all playing that you need to do. All right, so all right, so I think this is probably as close as I'm going to get it to right. So I've got the clamp on there, got everything flushed up as much as I can, trying to keep it pretty squared there. So I'm just going to take it and run it along this face, which will cut my dado right along there. So, wish me luck. Eyes, ears, loud noises. Well, that's what I was afraid would happen. Busted out the bottom corners there. So what does that mean? That doesn't work. I mean, the sloppy answer is I'm going to be putting edge banding around it anyway, so it would cover it up. I mean, structurally, it's not going to hold that much, so it's not like I need it there for strength, but I mean, obviously it doesn't look great to have those edges there exposed. I haven't done the most precise job of putting this on, but you can kind of see there that's not really the look I'm going for. And to be honest, as soon as I go to route out, the rabbit here on this piece that will allow it to drop into that dado, this bottom corner down here is going to get blown out too. So what is the right answer? I guess I can try turning the blade speed down. Maybe if I don't have the blade spinning as fast, it won't destroy it as quickly. I guess I can try that. See how that goes. It's just a little bit too aggressive in how I did that. All right, let me do this. Drop this in here real quick. Just to hold it in place while I put the clamp around. Everything will be true to itself. All right, let me try to turn this speed down here. See what that does. Don't know that I have high hopes for that solution, but we'll see what we can come up with here. All right, eyes, ears, fingers, and loud noises. Yeah, same thing happened. What's that bottom corner? What do you mean? Door's been open. Is this one just not recognize it? I wonder if well, I got a lot more plywood. So let me go ahead and just move on with this. I'm going to have to obviously do the same thing with these end pieces. Same thing in terms of sandwiching them together. Well, sorry, let me take these pictures real quick because I think I've completely forgotten to keep up with that while I was in problem solving mode. I just stopped remembering to document. So let me recreate that a little bit real quick. Okay, so I showed the data, but I haven't showed anything since then. Oh, so I didn't show the one on Microsoft. That's annoying. I'll recreate that later. I'm going to recreate this piece now. These are the recreation. I'm not quite as precise. Alright, so here's the tricky part. These are going to be on here like this, like this. These are going to be on like that. Then I need to cut out this front face. You can drop it. Okay. Which means these need to go like that. So this side will be up against the fence, and the blade will cut out this front face here. That's the problem. Not to do it like Yes. Yes, like that. So definitely removes that chunk. Definitely removes those little pieces. All right. Well, nothing to be helped at the moment. Now, I will be honest. This is the part that makes me feel the squirreliest. Because I can't really use the push blocks, and obviously the router's nothing to joke with. So, I'm not as thrilled with this. Be super careful with this, and I am going to ruin these pieces before I let this get anywhere close to touching my hands. Here goes nothing. Well, it turned out differently than the long side pieces did. Managed to actually preserve those edges right there, which I'm kind of shocked by. But did not do the cleanest job getting through that last little bit there at the end. Granted, I was really, really nervous about that cut. Just didn't want to get anywhere close to risking my fingers. I think what I'm going to do is do it again, but cut from this side. So you can see that that was a pretty clean start there. No, you can't, not from that far away. Yeah, y'all really can't see anything. I apologize for the quality of this camera. This was where the cutting started. It was really clean. But when I got to this second piece, it got a lot just rougher. So I think I'm going to start again, but instead of going right to left, I'm going to go left to right and see if that lets me get this cleaned up at all. And I just busted it off. Just too soft and too fragile. Just popped apart right there. Very disappointing. So, with that, since it seems like I'm going to have difficulty doing this the way I really wanted to, I'm going to have to change it up to something a little bit different. Obviously, still be able to use the data that I've got before, right? That's pretty spot on. Other good news is that since I've got the since I've got these scrap pieces already, I can just toss this or reuse it. But in terms of it being the long side, I don't need that because I have these other two long sides that I can use that aren't missing any of the little chunks. I'm thinking, since I'm going to have to do kind of call an audible here, I'm thinking what I will probably do is switch this off pocket holes, but no, that's still not going to look good. I mean, I can always just go ahead and what I can probably just go ahead and do, honestly, is just cut this down to be not that, but these down to just be 3 inches long. So they'll be exactly the same length as the board itself. And then these 1/4 inch now he will come up to there. So I'll just end up with a butt joint, which isn't as cool. I mean, again, for what I'm making, it will be perfectly functional. It won't be as strong, just having a butt joint instead of a rabbit and dado. It just won't be as strong. Nothing really be helped there. So I think that's what I need to do. I'm going to take these pieces that are currently 3.5 inches come down to just be 3 inches. Again, on the miter saw, which is why I didn't completely take that apart in case I needed it, which turns out I do. And then I will take this scrap piece here and cut off the last little bit to make it 10 inches as well. Unfortunately, this guy gets pitched, as does this gentleman here. Unless I can think of something to do with them. There you go. About as tight a friction fit as I can get. But there is your quarter. It's frustrating. Oh, that is really frustrating. No. Disappointing, but not the end. All right. Focus back up. So I am now done with the routing table for today. And pull that out. Back over here. First things first, gonna cut those down, make sure they're both at 10 inch. Oh! I can get those pictures I forgot to get last time. Oops. loud noises. All right. So, how to change plans. frustrating, disappointing. I just realized I never even plugged in the hose to vacuum all the stuff, so I just sprayed sawdust all over the back of my workbench. So here it is. Here's a little box I've made. So, a couple of small differences. Basically, visually, it's the same thing that I was planning for it to be. It's 9x3 on the interior, has a 1/4 inch bottom to it. Very small, very thin, very lightweight. Like I said, it's not going to carry anything heavy, so it doesn't need to be anything robust. This piece, a little bit weak. It's a little bit of play there in the bottom dado. Also looks like I cut a little bit short because it wiggles back and forth and side to side a little bit. So that's not exactly right, which is disappointing. This end looks great. This end's perfect. This is a good end. We'll only look at this end. So obviously, there's no rabbet and dado there to connect these pieces, which means it's going to be a little bit tougher for me to get all this square and pretty, especially since this is wiggling so much. There's nothing, it was supposed to have the channel kind of running down this way to kind of keep this from being able to play like that. Looks like I cut these cut these end pieces just barely. We're talking a 16th of an inch there, but that little bit of space there. Gonna make it a little bit more difficult to true that up when it comes time to glue it and everything, because obviously there's nothing in there. Now, just eyeballing it, what I might be able to do in terms of kind of creating a spacer almost is use some of that edge banding just as a filler, like, nothing else, like not even as a, just so there's not that play back and forth. I don't know if you can read it there, but yeah, you can see that wiggling. Anyway, man, that's such a bummer. Like all my energy and motivation just kind of zipped out on me. Man, that's a bummer. So, next step will be to glue this up. Well, give it a light sanding first, just to kind of take off some of the rough edges. But I'll go ahead and glue this up. Find a way to clamp it well. Let's see if I can think of something other than the edge banding as possible. Because obviously that's kind of an expensive filler to use. But I'll go ahead and set that up. And yeah, I'll go ahead and get that set up and glued up and everything. I have to let that sit obviously for a little while to kind of get cured, right? I'll get the little white posts that I already made. Well, I guess I need to let it cure and then put on the edge banding because I'm going to be gluing the posts to the edge banding. I'm not going to try to cut out edge banding on the post. That'd be annoying. So I need to glue it, and then I need to glue it up, clamp it, just kind of keep it in place. I'll probably put a couple of brad nails. Yeah, might put a couple of brad nails just kind of through to keep that connected, since I don't have the rabbet and dado anymore on these corners. I'll probably just take like
like one or maybe two brad nails and just drive them through just to help this hold upright the way I want it to be and not let it flex back and forth like that. That is probably what I'll need to do to keep all that kind of in line, as it were. So, anywho, those are my next steps. I'm trying to stay upbeat, guys, but I'm really that's a little disappointing. I think what's probably most disappointing is that I had this cool idea, and obviously it's a bummer the cool idea didn't work out, but I'm new. This is the first time I've ever tried it. There's probably some flaw in my methodology that I missed, and if I had more experience, I'd know how to redo that. So I'm not giving up on the router table. Honestly, I might just need to use a lot of the scrap wood I've got now and just play with it and try it over and over and over and try to come up with, see what I did wrong and see how I can fix it and do it better for next time. And that'll just take practice. I think honestly what's really got me the most frustrated is that after I got disappointed, I got sloppy with my cuts. Like honestly, I really think that right there, I think is what bothers me the most. Because that's not a technique issue. That's not a, I have, it's a cheap router with cheap bits, so maybe that's the reason why this method didn't work out. If I had sharper tools and better tools, maybe that would have worked better. Shoot, maybe I should have had it spinning faster. Maybe if it was spinning faster, it wouldn't have ripped it at that chunk so much. I turned it all the way down to the lowest setting. Maybe I should have cranked it up to 11. So again, that's just practice. I need to practice. I need to get better. I need to try until I get this figured out. Because again, I took 1.5 inches off of a 2-foot wide board. I've got another 13, 14 passes I can take on that. Hi, Cat. I see you. Yeah. Yes, I see you. No, I'm not inviting you in. No. You're not. No. Making eye contact with that cat the whole time, and it was just, no, I'll just come in. I come in now. Is that cool? I just come in. Anyway, yeah, I'm frustrated with myself for letting myself get sloppy there. That's really on me. And then to make matters worse, out of frustration, I had slammed these two together so that I can't get them apart. Maybe I can. But I could use these to recut for those end pieces. But it appears as though yep. There's your 1/4 inch. Stuck right in there. There you go, there's a rabbit. 1/2 inch deep, 1/4 inch wide. And it's now stuck in here. Because if I could clear this out, then obviously I could chop this into new 3-inch sections and that'd be golden. But again, frustration got the better of me. And I made a dumb mistake again. Alright, so bear with me. I'm gonna see if I can't clear out this Just need something that's narrower than a quarter inch. Long enough to get that. Could it be? What else could it be? That's too wide, right? Hey, there we go. And just like that, we're back in business. Let's go. Okay. That. All right. I gotta be careful with this, because I can't afford to lose so much space here. And again, in terms of learning from past mistakes, eyes, ears, loud noises. There we go. There we go. All right. I have solved the problem of my own making. All right. So that is a much cleaner, truer fit. I'm much happier with that. Also, just kind of a lucky note. I had no business planning this whatsoever, but it kind of turned out cool.
If you look, I don't even know if you can see this. I'm gonna try to shade it for you. If you can see the wood grain here, and the way this wood grain kind of comes and stops at that point, you turn the corner. This wood grain happens to continue on there, and when it stops up here, you turn the corner again. It kind of continues around. So pure luck there. Did not plan that. Did not do it on purpose. But kind of cool it turned out. Doesn't happen on the opposite end, where the grains line up is all different. But it's kind of cool that it sort of kind of flows that way. All right, so now it is time for gluing. And I apologize, my phone's buzzing at me. Right. So unless I'm mistaken, it is now time for me to glue everything up. I can't think of what else I need to do at this point. I'm sure there is something else I need to do, but I can't think of it. So what I'm going to do, break this down, turn this into a gluing station. Matter of fact, I'm going to break this down, turn it into a gluing station, and bring back my white posts from this morning. I don't know what to do with these yet. I don't know if they're trash or not. The moment they're scrap, that doesn't necessarily mean I'm going to make them trash. I'm starting to strip out that screw. That'll probably be a frustrating thing in the future.
By the way, told you I'd be finding these little dowel pieces until I'm finished cleaning up. All right, so told you all there was a story behind these. These are Fruity Dino Bites, which is obviously the store brand version of Fruity Pebbles. Now, one of the big reasons that I'm working out here, that I really wanted to have a shop of my own, be able to do projects like this, is that when I was a little kid, I got piano lessons from my grandmother, Granny. And every now and then, if I begged Mom hard enough, when Granny went home after piano lessons, I'd get to go with her. And usually, on the nights when Granny would come over to go to teach piano lessons, she'd go grocery shopping afterwards on her way home. Which meant that if I got to go grocery shopping with Granny, I was allowed to pick out 5 items. Whatever 5 items I picked, Granny would buy for me. You know what one of those 5 items always was? Fruity Pebbles. Fruity Pebbles was my Granny and Granddaddy treat. That's what I always had whenever I was over at Granny and Granddaddy's. Granny would get me a box, and she'd take them and she'd pour them into little Ziploc sandwich bags. I'd be sitting there in front of the TV watching Danny Kaye's Inspector General, or Singing in the Rain, or that like 100 VHS volume Looney Tunes anthology that y'all got me for Christmas that one year. Or
we'd go for a walk down to the ponds out there at the Missionary Learning Center and feed the ducks. I just remember stomping my bare feet up and down that clay along the lake bank. Had one baggie with Fruity Pebbles for me, another baggie with stale bread for the ducks. Splash and make a mess of myself. I can't even imagine what Granny must have thought of me coming back in her house looking like that. But the other thing was so cool about going over at Granny and Granddaddy's house was that they, excuse me, they had this huge 2-car garage. I mean, it was just enormous. And they parked all their cars in the driveway. Because that 2-car garage is Granddaddy's workshop. I mean, he had everything in there. I don't know what half the things were, but he had it. And I can just remember going over there, and he was always working on something, you know, whether he was building sets for church Christmas pageant or repairing a piece of furniture, or what I always did was bug him into making me a sword and a shield so I could run around acting like I was King Arthur or Robin Hood or something like that. But you ask Granddaddy for it, he could make it for you. And he'd make it better than what you wanted. You know, I just wanted to take 2 pieces of wood and slap them together and put a screw in the middle and call it a sword. But he would make, man, there was so much craftsmanship he'd put into there. He would take one piece of wood, right? You take this and you cut this out, it'd be the sword blade, and then down here he'd shape it into the handle so you could have a good grip on it, a little bit of a stock on the end so you'd have a good grip. And you cut that out on the, must have been the bandsaw, right? I don't know. I was too young. I didn't know what he was doing. He was cutting it out of wood. So he'd cut it out and he'd go, great, there's my sword, perfect. Granny would go, no, wait, it's not done yet. Take 2 more pieces of wood, and he'd cut out the exact shape of that handhold again. Take it over to the router. I'm assuming it must have been a router. Round over the edges so it's nice and smooth. And he'd glue those 2 pieces of wood on the outside of that, so you had a thick grip that was rounded over, so you have a better handhold. And he'd go and glue that up. And he'd go, great, awesome, now my sword's ready to go. No, not yet. The sword's not done yet. He'd take 1 more piece of wood, make it into an oval, drill into the center, hollow out the center, and drop that pommel over the top. I mean, the man, all I wanted were 2 pieces of wood stuck together. I was going to let my imagination do the rest. And that wasn't good enough for Granddaddy, because his imagination wanted to play too. And when he got his hands on a project, he did it right. He did it the way it was supposed to be done, not the way that I would have been happy with, that I would have accepted and thought I was happy with until he made those. Oh man, and don't even get me started on the shields. Making me lay down my arm on the back of that thing so he could measure it out for where the hand strap was going to be in the forearm strap so you'd have a nice good secure hold on it. Woodworking and Fruity Pebbles. There are obviously a million memories that I have at Granny and Granddaddy's house. And all their houses that they've been at throughout the years. And I'm sure there'll still be many more. But woodworking and Fruity Pebbles are the 2 that stand out to me. And that's why I wanted to have this shop. I want to, in whatever small way I have, carry that on. And I don't know if I'll ever get as great at it as Granddaddy was. But it's a way for me to
to relive some of those first memories I had with them. And same thing with the free bevels. Every time that I get them from the store, it's just those memories of wheeling and dealing with Granny and trying to say, okay, well, I'm not, I can't get 5 items. I want this one big thing. Can I trade in two of my regular size items for this one big one? And obviously, all the playing trombone and the being a music minor and stuff. So much of that is connected in my mind to those piano lessons that Granny gave me. So my hope is to keep on plugging away at this woodworking stuff and slowly but surely build new and more and better projects. To always have some pretty pebbles out here to eat with it. This is fan. So, sorry, that got a little bit deeper than I was expecting it to. So, I'm gonna go ahead and glue up this box and get to work on that. Also got clamp there to hold it in place. Some wood glue, brush to apply it with. I'm going to go ahead and use plans I drew up just as something to spread the glue out on, hopefully keep my my workbench a little bit cleaner. Brush. That was the other thing I was looking for. Alright. Found a use for my scrap wood. The question is whether or not that's too visible. I mean, obviously, if I was going to paint over it, that would disappear. Another option, I guess, is I could put edge bounding on the outside, but that's going to look strange. I think I'm going to go ahead and do that. Might not look exactly right, but at least it will add just a little bit of help while everything's drying. Yeah, it won't be perfect, but I think it'll be good just to that a little bit. Although the real question is, well, can I do that while it's all sitting together? No, actually, I might have to. Yeah, this is gonna do it all. Okay, yeah, I don't need that. All right, no brass then. Cool. Asked and answered. All right, so we are just going to go with this here. This is a box clamp. It's got this cable strap here, so you can pull this stuff out to stretch out to be the size you need it to be, and then when you tighten it down, then obviously it pulls in all directions at the same time and makes a nice right angle, keeps it all trued up. So this is what I'll be using around the perimeter to hold everything in place. But first, we glue. Sorry. I'm hiding all the good stuff from here, aren't I? There we go. All right, first we glue. So just went ahead and put a bead of glue down there in the center. I'm going to use the silicone brush. Try to spread that out evenly so that it coats the whole surface in there. Make this nice and tight and strong. Obviously, there's almost certainly going to be squeeze out. Once I put this in, that is what I will use my rag there for, to try to clean that up. Not have those lumpy bubbles kind of squeezing at the sides. And I'm dripping on the paper, which is why I put down the paper. Obviously, I'm going to go ahead and add glue here to the edges as well, so these pieces can refrain from the glue to itself. So let's do the floor. Now, as I understand it, you're not supposed to put glue, like for doors and stuff like that, you're apparently not supposed to really put glue inside the dado where the floor goes. That's the wrong face. That's the wrong face. Just take this face. Because apparently, like, as it needs to, it kind of expands and contracts. And with stuff in there, it's going to kind of move around, so you want that that floor bottom to be able to flex and move. I am planning to put sand in here, and so I don't really want the sand having it's a chance to kind of work itself through all the various cracks and crevices and get out. So that is why I am choosing to go ahead and glue up everything, just more as almost like really more like caulking than anything else, just to kind of try to shore up an escape route, if you will. Put these on real quick. Oops. Making a right old mess, ain't I? All right. There it is. Glued up and banded up. Now I just need to let it set and dry. Once it's done drying, well, let me clean up some of these. All right. So now I just need to let that dry up for a little while, and then do a little bit of sanding. And once I've sanded everything, then I can attach the edge banding. And once the edge banding is good, then I can put on the posts. We're just about done.
ladies and gents, I'm going to call that good for this phase. There's nothing more to do for a little while until that's done drying. So thank you for spending some more of the afternoon with me. I appreciate it. Thank you for watching me freak out and have a meltdown for a little while there when the quarter method didn't work out like I wanted it to. But I think I found a good solution. It'll work out well, even if it's not exactly what I originally had in mind. If you're interested, let me know. When I go to do the edge banding and the posts and all that kind of stuff, I can run another live stream, but those will be kind of small, little, quick one-off things, so it might be tough for you guys to know that the stream is happening and jump on before it's over. So for this afternoon, I'm going to say thank you. I'm going to kind of leave it there. Just got some cleanup stuff to do, and that's not as much fun for you guys to watch. But appreciate you sticking around, and I'm out of here. Thanks again.